Good morning everyone, and welcome to our ecoDa Forvis Mazars webinar on the Omnibus regulation with a specific focus on the CSRD. There have been many discussions about this topic recently, and today we aim to provide clear insight using real-life examples. Our goal is to help board members understand possible scenarios and make informed decisions. We also want to share a positive message to keep the momentum going in this important area. As always, the webinar will be recorded and you can ask questions through the Q&A functions. Without further ado, I will pass the floor to Emmanuel Thierry, partner at Forvis Mazars, who will start explaining the content of the Omnibus regulation so that we are all on the same page. Emmanuel, the floor is yours.
All right. Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here talking to you today about the CSRD, which has been a topic of interest, I believe, over the last 2 years. And I'm very pleased also to be together with Dragos and Leena to get those real-life examples and real-life experience about what the CSRD has been over the last 12 months. Let me introduce myself very quickly, and maybe I will let also Dragos and Leena introduce themselves. So my name is Emmanuel Thierry. I'm a partner with Forvis Mazars in France. I'm leading the CSRD task force for Mazars, which aims at making sure that we are ready in every country in Europe to support our clients on the CSRD journey. I've been 20 years with Mazars in various continents in Japan and in the US before coming back to France. And I'm very glad, I think there's a third seminar that I'm doing with ecoDa, and I'm very glad to be able to talk about CSRD today. Dragos, maybe you want to introduce yourself as well?
Thank you, Emmanuel. Hello, everybody. I am Dragos Neacsu. I am an independent non-executive director since April 2021 with Electrica, which is the largest distributor of electric energy in Romania. Publicly listed company, the only example in Romanian capital markets where the majority package was sold via an IPO 10 years ago, 11 years ago to be precise, where the state still controls about 49%. So a very interesting governance life. Previously, I've been for more than 25 years in financial services, both in brokerage, asset management, and also I've been for a quick stint in a public office as State Secretary of Finance and head of State Treasury 20 years ago. I have a civil engineering background, and I'm part of the first MBA cohort in Romania 30 years exactly now. Happy to be here.
Okay, I suppose it's my turn. My name is Leena Linnainmaa. I'm the Secretary General of Directors Institute Finland and also chair of ecoDa's Advocacy Committee. Before joining Directors Institute in 2019, I was Deputy CEO of Finland Chamber of Commerce and spent there 20 years, and before that more than 10 years in the banking sector. And very interested in hearing Dragos' and Emmanuel's contributions and hopefully also questions from the audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Leena and Dragos. So the way we have structured our presentation today is first I will introduce a few ideas, a few perspectives on the first time application of CSRD and also on the Omnibus proposals. Before asking Dragos about his experience as a leading CSRD reporting preparer, and Leena about her views from a board member point of view. And then we'll be very glad to have your questions. So maybe let's start with the perspectives we can share on the first time application of the CSRD. As you all know, CSRD has been applicable to the large companies that are listed from 2024. and all the reports are being produced basically in February, March, and April. So we see the first publications are already 200, 300 that have been published as far as I know. And we can already have a little bit of feedback about how things went and what is the actual result. So I'm going to first give a quick reminder about what were the hopes and dreams of the Green Deal before moving on to discussing what have been the challenges observed at preparers and sharing my preliminary views on the results. Quick reminder, hopes and dreams of the Green Deal. It was a strategic decision made in 2020 to turn the European economy to make it more sustainable. And for that, we had a central piece, which was the CSRD. The CSRD is, just a reminder, the CSRD is not a tool that is creating obligations other than reporting. The CSRD is really an instrument that is aiming to driving accountability and transparency. This is not creating obligation to be, for instance, aligned with the Paris Agreement. The CSRD does not make it mandatory. It's just an instrument for reporting so that companies can disclose or must disclose what is their actual ESG performance and what are their plans in terms of transition towards being a more sustainable economy. So the CSRD is coming up with plenty of other text, about 50 texts that were part of the Green Deal, including some that are well known, like the taxonomy, the CSRD, CBAM, and so on and so forth. Again, CSRD is just a tool, an instrument for reporting. The objective was to refresh the NFRD, which was the prior directive for ESG reporting, and to create more comparability across sectors and companies through the standardization and the reporting and the use of common standards, those that are called ESRS, that were created by IFRAG. The ultimate objective, and that's definitely one of the objectives that should be considered to judge whether or not this first wave was a success or not, is to align step by step the quality of ESG information produced by companies with the quality of financial information. Not on everything. And that's why, in a way which I believe was quite reasonable, was introduced the concept of double materiality, which allows companies, and actually it's not only allows, it makes it mandatory for companies to only report and only focus on matters that they consider to be material from an impact, risk, or opportunities point of view. And this is also a regulation that was put in place with gradual implementation. 2024, basically all the large listed companies, then was expected from 2025, all the private companies with more than 250 people and the listed companies. So very wide-ranging impact. 50,000 companies were expected to be reporting on CSRD, and something that was progressive to drive accountability and transparency. As we know, and I'll come back to that later on, there are some changes in the plan. So the plan that you can see at the bottom of this slide is not the one that will be put in place at the end of the day. Some feedback and challenges that we have observed at preparers. So preparers are the companies that have prepared that have published their first CSRD reports. First of all, to come back with the context, it was all prepared within a very short time and under an evolving reporting framework. The rules have changed quite dramatically. So for reporting in 2024, the CSRD was actually published only in December 2022. And the first set of ESRS was adopted at the end of July 2023. So it's a very short time frame for an implementation on January 1st, 2024. And that was very complex. There were 12 ESRS, more than 100 FAQs, There were plenty of interpretation guidance on double materiality assessment, value chain, the list of data points, the EU taxonomy, and plenty of questions on transition provisions, SFDR, and so on and so forth. So all this within the tight time frame, it's been a challenge for the companies to get ready and to have the maturity in stepping back about what they are going to publish. There were also plenty of challenges that we've observed in terms of determining for the company what really matters to them and going away from an exercise that used to be very much driven by communication. So this is something that has required gathering the views of various stakeholders and setting up also a robust and evidence-based process. This is what the auditors have been focusing on, by the way, making sure that there is an evidence-based process to determine what are the material items and the material topics that are being reported on. One of the challenges for the preparers was, again, to go away from communication and communicating, even so communication on the good deeds of the company. This is something that we've seen quite a bit, but going into some more neutral reporting, restricted, again, on material items. One big challenge, and I think certainly Dragos and Leena will be talking about that, has been the data quality, with a lack of appropriate data and also data quality issues, because we're not talking only about the information within the company, but we're also talking about the information outside of the company in the value chain. And obviously, not all the stakeholders of the companies have the same maturity in terms of reporting and in terms of information. And the ability to gather that information has been quite a challenge. All this has required resources, systems, budgets, and that's been obviously a challenge also for many companies to get organized, to mobilize their human resources on a global basis, develop new operating models. We've seen a transition typically from the ESG teams that were owning the NFRD reporting process to more responsibility transferred into the CFO department. So that's one of the new changes that we've observed. And it came also, obviously, with the challenge of obtaining the financial resources to produce that information, to pay for sometimes consultants, to pay for the auditors, and also to allocate the resources that are needed internally. One of the big challenges as well, quite obvious, is considering the tight timeline. We don't have necessarily on the market all the competencies that are necessary to produce and to do this analysis. So this is an ecosystem which is developing and which does not have the same maturity in all countries. The last point I wanted to make on the first-time application of CSRD is to share a few views on the results. First of all, and I think that's quite important, ESG is definitely on the agenda of companies. The ESG matters and the discussion around the ESG matters has come for regulatory reasons into the recurring governance and strategic agenda of companies. Why? Because it needs to be discussed. The sustainability statements need to be reviewed or discussed by the audit committee, typically. There is also an approval of those information before they are being published. And there will be a follow-up and a monitoring of the plans and the actions that have been described. Second, and that's quite important, in many countries, this exercise has led to more capacity building in ESG reporting, but also in ESG analysis of the topics that really count. And this is obviously something where Europe is far ahead compared to other geographies, because there are more and more people that are being trained with regards to ESG issues, and that are also finding solutions to the environmental issues that we are facing. Another good thing in terms of results from the first CSRD publication is the fact that now we have targets. And in many countries, for many companies, there are also transition plans that are being developed. They were not all perfect, maybe, but those transition plans are definitely being developed for climate. And that means that this topic, again, is on the agenda of the companies. One observation that I'm sharing with my audit hat is that we have observed actually very few qualifications or emphasis of the matter in assurance reports. So basically that means that most reports have been issued a clean opinion by the auditors, because as you may know, those CSRD reports have to be subject to audit. It's all not blue or green, if you prefer. There is also a feeling of missed opportunity from time to time. First of all, when you look at the various CSRD reports that have been published so far, you may feel that the comparability is not yet achieved or not fully achieved. And it's difficult to compare the performance, ESG performance of some of the companies within the same sector, while this is the ultimate objective. So this is something that will, I believe, be much better in year 2, because all the companies right now are looking at each other's reports. And definitely there will be a positive imitation process in year 2, I believe, to improve the quality and the comparability of those reports. Second, there are a number of exceptions in the implementation of ESRS that may not be systematically caught due to the complexity and the volume of information and the tight timeline. So what I mean by that is that despite the best efforts of the companies, we don't necessarily have a full compliance of the statements, CSRD statements, with what was originally intended by the ESRS, but there has been a lot of flexibility that has been introduced to allow for transparent publication. Important point as well is there are still some reports that lack readability. And typically, a lot of the taxonomy reporting is difficult for its use. Essentially with regards to sustainable investments, identification of sustainable investments. You see a number of companies with plenty of empty tables, and that's something that definitely will need to be addressed. Last point, and that's maybe for you to say, board directors and others, who's going to read and use those reports now? So I think that's a question for the companies. This is a question for the board members. And this is also a question, obviously, for the various stakeholders, including the banks. So those are a few elements of feedback on the first time application of the CSRD. Now, let me quickly, before I let the floor to Dragos, let me quickly come back on the Omnibus proposals, which, as you may know, are part of an initiative from the Commission to simplify and to improve the competitiveness of European companies on an international basis. So this is a political agenda, and this political agenda is first of all meeting its targets with ESG matters and essentially with ESG reporting, so with the CSRD. So this package basically has proposals to simplify EU rules with regards to corporate sustainability reporting. And those simplification aim to reduce by 25% the administrative burden and by more than 35% for the SMEs until the end of the mandate. How it's being measured, it's a bit tricky, and I guess it will be tricky to assess at the end of the day, but those are the objectives. For that, there are 2 key proposals that were made at the end of February by the Commission. The first proposal is a stop the clock. You've seen in my presentation at the beginning about the journey and the gradual implementation of CSRD, and with a lot of companies that were due for implementation in 2025. So this first proposal is to stop the clock for Wave 2 and Wave 3 companies by postponing the publication of CSRD reporting by 2 years. So not on 2025 performance, but on 2027. And the stop the clock proposal was already approved, I believe, by the European Council. So that's something that's going to be moving forward quite quickly, and which should indeed allow a number of companies, so all those that were not Wave 1, that should allow them to not have to report on a mandatory basis on their 2025 ESG performance. The second proposal is actually to amend the content of CSRD with a focus on the ESRS and a focus also on the taxonomy reporting. But there is something to keep in mind. Today, 19 countries out of 27, if I'm not wrong, have transposed the CSRD. And until the European Parliament and the Council have reached an agreement on those two proposals, that's the local law that applies. So typically, in France, there was a transposition of the CSRD that was done at the end of 2023. This is this transposition that actually is the law that could be enforced and that companies need to follow. It is likely, I will say, that the stop the clock proposal will come into play before the end of the year, but we don't know. So what's something that's quite important to keep in mind, national law still governs the actions and the obligations of the company. Let's look at what are the key proposed provisions relating to CSRD. There are a lot of details, and to tell you the truth, a lot of uncertainty remains as to the landing round, because there will be a lot of negotiation at the European Parliament level to make sure that those things still make sense. So first of all, you should expect some significant changes to the current Omnibus proposal. So what I'm going to lay out later on is likely not to be the final arrival point. The key proposal for simplification is first of all to change the threshold. Prior to the Omnibus proposal, companies with more than 250 people were potentially subject to CSRD reporting. Now the threshold has moved from 250 to 1,000 employees. It's 1,000 employees at company level or at group level. That's something not to be forgotten. And this is really becoming kind of the key element in determining whether or not the company is going to be subject to CSRD. The second point is, as I said earlier, is the postponement of CSRD reporting for Wave 2 and Wave 3 companies by 2 years. But again, that needs to be addressed with the local transposition law, and the timing of this transposition is a bit unclear. Fourth point, companies in the scope of the future CSRD with less than 450 million euros in revenues will be exempted from mandatory EU taxonomy reporting. So this is obviously an important point. I was saying earlier that taxonomy reporting was difficult to read and difficult to use for the various users. And this is typically something that is trying to address this challenge. Fifth point, ESRS standards are to be simplified, and notably with regards to reducing the number of data points, and specifically those qualitative data points, and removal of sector-specific standards. Sixth point, the reference to reasonable assurance, which was expected from 2028, is to be removed. So which means that the expectation now is that the audit will take place on a limited assurance basis further on, instead of moving to a reasonable assurance. Just as a reminder, limited assurance means for the auditor to tell you if they have seen something that is wrong, and I'm simplifying, while reasonable assurance is to tell you that the reporting is right. So it's a bit of a different type of approach. Last point. So this is a summary of the changes that have taken place with the Omnibus, or that are proposed, not taken place, that are proposed. And just wanted also to briefly bring up some considerations for non-EU groups with two angles. The first one is if it's a EU subsidiary, and the second one, if looking at it from a headquarter global operation. So typically, if you are the company in Japan, in the US, where the headquarter is located. So if you are the EU subsidiary, let's not forget that the threshold of 1,000 employees is on a consolidated basis. But if you have less than 1,000 employees, then you are likely, according to the proposal, to be exempt from CSRD reporting. Okay. If you have more than 1,000 employees on a single or consolidated basis, you may still have to do your CSRD reporting, but only from 2027. So postponement of 2 years, you will benefit from the postponement of 2 years. Now, there is a change with regards to global operations. There used to be a threshold of 150 million euros of turnover in the EU. Now this threshold has moved to 450 million euros. So basically, if you are an American company with more than 450 million euros of turnover in the EU, and you have large branches in the EU, your global business is likely to be subject to CSRD reporting from 2028. So those were the few things I wanted to share with you today, giving a little bit of feedback on the first time application of CSRD and on the Omnibus proposals. And we're going to further discuss those topics together with Dragos and Leena. Maybe Dragos first.
Sure, at the end. Thank you for that. Yes, please.
So Dragos, maybe if you can first describe a little bit the challenges. So you've done your first CSRD publication, right? Or you're about to do the publication?
Yeah, actually we are it's a happy coincidence. Today I'm actually getting out of my board meeting at Electrica, where we have first the discussions on committees. And we will have today on the agenda later in the afternoon, after we finish the webinar, of course, the approval of the first sustainability statement on behalf of the group. And I will definitely address, and I will first wait for your questions, but just to brief you on this, I think it's a happy coincidence, first of all. So I'm positive on that. On the other hand, in order to reach here, I have to say that this started like 3 years ago. While being a board member here, an independent board member, I started the discussions to set up a committee within the board addressing climate governance challenges. I have to say that it took me about 1 year to convince both my colleagues in the board and the executives in Electrica that there is a need to address this in this form of a committee and to draft the rules for the activity of the committee. And I have to thank, I think I've seen in the participants, one of the colleagues from the Romanian chapter of the Association of Independent Directors, Simona Fotu. I have to publicly, every time I get to see her or not, I thank her for her input in drafting these rules. And also it was key to have the executives contributing to the rules. So it took me like 3 months to convince my board members, but it took me like 9 months to convince the executives and so on. So, but in 1 year, it was end of January 2023, when we had this Committee for Climate Governance and Public Policies approved, and we have worked since then to issue the first sustainability strategy, which was the end of 2023, and then to review it throughout 2024 with the aim of preparing for this first sustainability reporting. So it was quite capacity building, as you call it, first of all internally, in terms of aligning both the executives and the non-executive levels in the group. And I have to say that Electrica is a group of not just the holding company, but there are 7 different subsidiaries that we have on different parts of the value chain in energy, production, distribution and supply, and services attached to all this. So quite an interesting, and we have also the development of production for renewable energy solutions in the last few years, since I joined here. So it's quite an evolving landscape, and of course it's At the end of the day, it's about people, finding the right people, defining the right processes, and making sure you have the infrastructure. You have the IT infrastructure, you have the resources, including financials, so that everything works well. And we are in process of that, but I see that you might have some questions. So,
well, thank you for that. That's very interesting. So, once you've been able to set up this board environment, which was the basis somehow to move things forward, what have been the actual challenges that you have experienced, more specifically with CSRD implementation?
Yes. First of all, was to go beyond the conformity to the aspect of, okay, there is something that we have to do. It's a must-do list. Okay, it's another thing to be checked, cross-checked. Okay, to go beyond that, and because you need the people to engage beyond the reporting and the conformity aspect of it. And yeah, this was part of my role in a way, along with the CFO, who helped a lot in this, as he is running these under his direct.
So typically in your company, the CFO has been put at the center of the execution of the CSRD plans.
Yes, it's the same team there that had to be expanded in order, and this was a process to expand the team with people that have the knowledge and have some professional experience in doing that. Limited as it is, as the legislation is very new, but they are young and energetic and able to grasp on it. So this was part of the very happy outcomes to build this team. I'm very happy of that. It's one of the best teams that could be put together. I have quite a long experience. So I felt like a quasi-executive in a way in the last 6-12 months in that respect, as we followed very careful. Every month I had in the last 6-7 months, I had meetings of the committee to follow up on the preparation for this and to make sure that we have all the energy and the resources associated. Because, as you said, one of the big challenges after you get the people, you have to have the processes in place. And of course, you have to have processes that can gather and monitor and make reporting available with granular data. So it's very important that you have data that can fit in the same process, okay? And this was not easy. This was, let's say, first of all, an internal challenge within this group structure with all the people. And in order to do that, an idea that came, and we were very happy to be supported by Bucharest Business School in that respect, and a handful of professionals, including representatives of institutional investors, so people that actually buy in such companies like Electrica. Okay, so we tried to accommodate all the stakeholders' views into that, and we defined a custom-made educational program addressed both at board level and top executives in the first section. So people that within the companies within the group have top executive roles or are in the boards of those companies. And second one larger for operational people that are actually the ones collecting the data, making sure it's the granular data and reporting it, monitoring and reporting it. So altogether about 60-70 people for the last 6-7 months have been part of this educational program. Is going to be ended in April. By the time the first sustainability statement will be approved in the shareholder meeting, which is scheduled at the end of April. So it's a concentrated effort, and this educational program helped a lot in addressing the issues, day-by-day issues in translating these regulations into practice, and making sure, especially on double materiality assessments, I have to say that was the biggest challenge at the very beginning.
So
And
maybe,
also,
if I may, as a board member,
please.
what has been your involvement in the DMA review, or maybe the DMA itself, because some board members are also stakeholders of the company. If you can give an example of what you've been doing as a board member on the DMA.
So we were involved in the selection process for the outside help, the assistance that we tried to get, and we didn't make it from the very beginning, as you can imagine. So we tried with an independent consultant first, which had its limits because it's a very moving job market, and if you lose 2 or 3 of your key people as a small team, then your capacity to provide assistance is very limited, if any. So we had to deal with such a situation, and then to change in the middle of it. By the end of last year, we had to take a second set of assistance. So we had to work for the last 4 months, actually, with 2 teams from Big Fours. So we had 2 Big Fours supporting us, one on consulting and the other one as the auditor. And we had to make a little bit of arbitrage, I have to say, in their understanding of methodologies and technicalities. We undertook this role, so I was part of this, not on a daily basis, but from time to time, definitely I've been, and especially when times were a little bit rough in certain discussions. But we are happy to see that finally, and in order to, to make the auditor really able to issue this opinion, this first opinion, which is a limited opinion, as you know, normal for the first exercise. We had to make sure that we check the data, the carbon footprint for 2023 as well, to make sure that it's consistent, the methodology for 2024 and 2023. So in this respect, 2023 became the reference point to make sure that the methodology is working. And that involved additional effort, but just the week before we finalized that. And then we moved on to finalize on the taxonomy, which was the second biggest challenge. We just finished that just before having this meeting. So I could see already the draft wording of the opinion. So I'm okay. I'm feeling okay. Seeing it, it's going to be formal at the end of the day. But for the first exercise, yeah, it's been quite a journey, I have to say. But first of all, it's the people that count, and yeah, we can talk about the other investments and so on if you want to address.
Definitely. Maybe to finish on the DMA, how many ESRS have you considered to be material?
4 of them.
4 of them. Okay. So that shows that it's a true double materiality assessment. You've not taken everything. So you have selected and you've gone through the exercise of determining, is that something important to communicate about, or if that's not something important for your business? That's interesting.
Yes, and we will communicate this not just via this 200 pages document, which is a very hard read, I have to say.
Yes.
I mean, who is going to read it? You mentioned very few people. We will address this also because we are preparing to have our inaugural green bond issue in this June. So we are going to support the work done here by addressing 2 rating agencies, ESG rating agencies, to issue reports for Electrica, so they will have to read it and assess it, and hopefully come up with the reports in time before the bond issuance to support it. And yeah, it's going to be complicated to make research analysts, equity research analysts to really grasp it. I think that's going to be the challenge for this year, not just for Electrica. Energy is not an easy sector to to understand, it's very regulated. It's heavily regulated, especially in the last few years. So that's going to be the next challenge, I have to say. After finishing with the statement, we have to make sure that people get to see the benefits, the data. What is the story behind this data? What are the good parts? What are the bad parts? And how we gonna deal with that? Our action plans and how to measure this in the next period of time.
That is a bit maybe a question indeed. You've beyond the EU green bonds, which you just mentioned, and which definitely will rely on the taxonomy information typically. What do you think are going to be the use of this CSRD reporting for the company? And also, how do you think that this CSRD reporting is going to enter the recurring governance processes at your company?
So starting with the process that I mentioned in last summer, we set up such ESG related groups within each of the companies making the group consistent components of the group. So actually, it was their job internally. We didn't define from center, but we asked them to do that. And based on this selection of teams and with very clear roles in the preparation of their contribution to the statement, as we are the only entity in the group that has this mandatory provision to issue such a statement. The other ones are not filling in the criteria. So we had that, and based on that, we started that educational program. These are the people that were involved in the educational program. So it's a beginning of a new, I would say, organizational culture that is going to be, in my view, I hope, as I will still have 3 years of mandate, be able to contribute to the greening, if I may say, of the organizational culture within Electrica Group. So it's very important because here we have now also the aging phenomenon, which is specific to energy sector. So average age is somewhere between 49 and 50 years. So we have to be able to attract young talents, and communicating on what we are doing about ESG is a way to attract definitely young talent. I can tell you that from working in this period for in the implementation of CSRD, and not only because it's not just CSRD, as you know, we have other sustainability regulations to deal with. The most important benefit was to see how the, let's say, younger cohort of people react to this. It's beyond reporting, it's beyond this kind of conformity. It's much more than that. And I think we should build on that, and I think we have to expand that. And I think it's going to be a valuable way to communicate to our communities, and because we are present in 40% of geography of Romania, so we are a very large presence in half of Romania, more or less, and with a lot of university centers we are covering and so on. So we have to make the best out of this, and I think we will be able to tell you in the next years how we managed to do that.
Excellent. So you're giving a rather positive feedback on your experience with the CSRD preparation, with side benefits on the motivation of the young people, getting people together, training them on ESG matters. Now CSRD is going to change with the Omnibus. What is your view as a very large company of this Omnibus proposal?
So strictly from Electrica's perspective as a large listed company, CSRD is here to stay. So Electrica is keeping its course. And of course, we are looking at already planning for to be better prepared for the next exercise, for the next iteration. And we will do certain investments in IT development. We are going to acquire the ESG module from SAP. We are going to finalize an internal project, central finance, to make let's say, the monitoring of this data online and real time, which we are looking for some time already. It's 3 years since we are planning on that. So yeah, we are going to be much better prepared. And of course, we have these learning exercises on methodologies. And actually, we plan a follow-up meeting 1 month from today.
Okay.
After the day after we have the approval in the shareholders meeting on 28th of April, we're going to have all these 60, 70 people getting together and making a follow-up on this exercise in the preparation of what is going to be also organizational changes as a result of that, to make the process, because we didn't have at the group level something fine-tuned for all the entities by the time we started this exercise. Now we have learning experience, we have things that worked, things that didn't work, or worked too late sometimes, and these kind of processes, and we have to improve that. So I'm counting that we will have a very open discussion as a result of the whole process so far, and we will be better off for the second exercise. And I think we will, with all these changes, with these 2 years delays that might happen this year as a result of the stop the clock and the national legislation transposition, if that will happen until the end of December, which is quite challenging, but let's say that it's going to happen. I think it's important to have the benefit of these 2-3 exercises before you make really you address some significant changes to the body of the directives. I think it's important to have this kind of experience and to have really the capacity to make comparisons on granular data across geographies, across sectors. So we will benefit from thousands of companies doing this reporting, and it's not just internally, but of course we are going to look more and more. I have hundreds of reports already packed somewhere. I follow this. I have like 200 such reports prepared for reading, but they are, from 80 pages to 300 pages. So it's going to take some time. Anyway, it's going to be interesting. And I think we need to make sure that any significant changes to recent directives have to come up based on this kind of analysis. Done with the input from all the stakeholders. It's very important as a principal thing to do it like that, and not necessarily making it just a political decision.
I see you have a very big focus on the learnings and the improvement loop.
Yes.
Can be made from the first time publication, which I definitely understand. Well, thank you very much, Dragos, for this contribution and sharing your feedback on this first time experience, escaping your board for a few minutes. That's very kind of you. Leena, maybe you have also a view on this first time application of CSRD. On your side, how did you see boards to be involved in the CSRD preparation?
Of course, this practice started in the largest companies with a very capable and large executive management and lots of resources. And of course, the preparation, the actual preparation needs to be done within the executive management and under them. It seems to me that there are differences among the boards, how much they are involved or not, and how it is structured. And in a good and in a bad way, perhaps. First of all, of course, the boards need to make sure that the executive management is capable for this. And if there are not enough resources or expertise, that external experts are hired. And it seems to me that very many companies are using consultants, for example, big four experts there. So this is not a cheap exercise. As for the management, it often seems to be CFO who is working very much on this topic, regardless if there is or not a sustainability officer or not. But anyway, CFO is very much there. And as for the board's audit committees, seem to be the one handling it. In Finland, we don't have sustainability committees usually. There may be some companies having them, but usually it's the audit committee. And when we have discussed that should there be sustainability committees, directors' view seems to be that if there is a specific sustainability committee for this topic, it would take the sustainability stuff even further from the whole board. And having it only, having many committees, the individual board members may think that, okay, it's not for me, there are those experts and who will do the whole stuff. And this is regardless if there is a sustainability committee or not, usually the audit committee working on it, it might be that the whole boards are actually not very much interested and not very much involved in this project. And we at the Institute, we organize very many events for our members, and over the years we have had many on this topic also. And I have to say that it is not easy always to attract our members to these events unless they are specifically already previously interested in this topic. So it is somehow this legislation has become more about reporting than doing strategic things. And we're of course trying to change it. For example, our ESG reporting partner is PwC, and we will within 2 weeks we will have an event on value creation and growth related to this topic. So to make it so that the boards would see that there are opportunities. It's a strategic issue, but unfortunately we are not quite there yet. To be quite honest, what I'm seeing how we are organizing events, so it's we are not quite there yet, and unfortunately, as the reporting requirements are very heavy, it seems to the board members that this is a reporting exercise. This is not a strategic work exercise, and that I find is the largest pity in this topic, because definitely sustainability issues should be in the core of strategy for all companies. So all in all, the situation varies a lot, and at the Institute we are very much doing things to increase the awareness, and also that this is not just about reporting, and also we will have another workshop. Actually, Deloitte is our technology partner, so we will have a workshop where the use of technology for the data handling of these reports will be discussed. So we are doing what we can to help to raise the awareness, and hope that there will be our members, board members, directors who get interested in this, regardless that they have no previous experience. Unfortunately, people are like things that they are in their comfort zone, and we need to make things and titles and topics and speakers attractive so that they would go beyond their comfort zone and learn and get ideas from this stuff. So this is a work in progress for the board's role at the moment.
Thank you for that. You mentioned that you feel it's been a lot about reporting and maybe not enough about strategy, this exercise.
Yes.
And when you look at the results of the first CSRD report you may see in Finland, what is your perception of those of the challenges and of the first results?
Yes.
Beyond the fact that it could be more about strategy and more about actions.
Yes. First of all, the reports are too long. And of course, that's related to the regulatory situation. And this means that nobody besides the ESG rating agencies are going to read it. And they, of course, we will talk more about the Omnibus, but anyway, something needs to be done that they get to the core business of this sustainability in this company, and not 90 pages or 150 pages and 300 pages and whatever, because this has become more like a compliance exercise than a strategic, than a business exercise. And considering that we have members who have decades-long career in sustainability, directors in large companies, and they are saying now that they're getting sick and tired of this reporting. They would like to do things. They would like to do strategic things, and all the pressure is now on the reporting. And also this double materiality assessment, which is there, it is very important, and I hope that companies will understand that that is where you start, and not start collecting everything possible that you can imagine, but really consider what is important and what is material in our company for the financial and for the sustainability contents, and of course the comparability that seems to be an issue, that they are not, the playing field is level. They are not comparable, and so I wonder how the ESG rating agencies will be able to actually make wise decisions. Of course, it's a great pity that the whole sustainability reporting and regulation was not prepared globally, that there should be a global baseline and then maybe European add-ons, because this is not such a situation that companies from different sectors will and geographic locations would work in a similar manner, even though they are competitors. So this is something that what we are feeling, what our first experience is. So this is how it seems at the moment, and of course it's a process to learn things also, and we will see how it will be. But initially, okay, companies are doing it, but who reads it, and are they comparable, etc., etc. So there are issues and challenges.
So when you look at, you are very right at raising the question as to who is going to read it. But do you think that this CSRD reporting, however, will help drive the agenda, the ESG agenda at the companies, or that's just going to be put aside? Because that was the initial idea, right? To make it an instrument, yes, to yes, structure the reporting and to drive the agenda.
Yes. Yes and no. I think this is something that the reporting is so heavy now that it may have some, let's say, negative attitude impacts there, and also using too many resources for the reporting. But at the same time, there is the possibility that some boards and some companies will wake up to the stuff. And as I mentioned already, that my institute, that we are organizing events, awareness raising about value creation and growth and that sort of thing. So I think it's institutes such as us that it is our responsibility to show that don't drown in the reporting, get the benefits from it, because I think some of them are drowning and others are not drowning. Of course, some companies who are very advanced in this are seeing it as maybe a competitive advantage, that they're doing this very well, and others only see it as a compliance matter. So there are surely big differences in this, how it's going on.
Do you think, just I'm curious, do you think, for instance, one of the KPIs that is in CSRD usually is going to be the total emissions, right? Scope 1, 2, 3.
Yes.
Do you think that's something that on your boards that's going to be looked at on a regular basis, or that's just going to be looked at once a year and not compared to targets and not compared to past periods?
I think there will be differences, but some companies are using sustainability criteria in their remuneration schemes.
Indeed.
And those companies which have, and the number has increased a lot, we know that as a fact, that it has increased a lot. And of course, in those companies, there will be more thorough interest on the board, especially in the board level, because board decides on executive management's remuneration and the criteria. And we know, because we also partner with remuneration consultants, that we know from previous studies that it's quite a difficult topic, because when setting the criteria and targets, it seems that the remuneration actually happens more often, that the targets are fulfilled more often than in financial objectives. And this is something that it shouldn't be an automatic add-on to the remuneration, although it is a very important criteria to make it interesting for the executive management, but also avoid to make the remuneration schemes very complicated, because if there's elements every year, new elements and criteria and targets and whatever, so who does then understand what is the key, what should be the key driver there? But anyway, I think that all companies should look into the actual remuneration target setting, and that would make it more interesting also for the boards. And of course, it depends on the sector, your business sector, because not every sector is involved in biodiversity, for example, and climate change, but there are others that safety in the working environment is a crucial thing in some others, and then bribery and all kinds of things, but also that are the targets demanding enough, that is the target just that we don't get a criminal sentence, or we don't get a sanction, or is it something forward going?
Actually linked to performance.
Yes, actual performance to, which would be, because I think there has been some issues that they are more or less that, okay, did something go really badly, and if didn't, then you fulfill your target, and that it shouldn't be like that.
Thank you. Before we move to discussing a bit on your views on Omnibus, maybe one important point as well from the Green Deal for the boards was related to CS3D. What are your views on CS3D and how it could impact, because there were discussions about legal responsibility of the board members with regards to CS3D, so the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive. What are your views in this matter?
First of all, of course, welcoming the higher threshold for companies. However, yesterday, chair of a company where they have 667 employees said that they are so far in preparing everything for the reporting, etc., so they don't mind whether it's 1,000 or not, that they will continue anyway. So if the regulation is changed, it doesn't mean that every company is going to go to the lowest level, but definitely the higher threshold is good. But then the question is the SMEs. There's very many SMEs which we have been, ecoDa, we have been pointing it out from the very beginning, that what will be the SME's role in this, when if there is rigorous reporting, certificates, etc., information needed, that how will the SMEs cope? And for example, one company chair said just recently that, okay, they have quite many SME suppliers, and it is clear that they don't have resources if they need information, so that the large company can report properly and fulfill their duties and planning duties, etc. That, okay, is it then better that they buy the components from China, and they will surely get a paper that everything is in order? And this is something, it's a moral question, and it's a legal question, and it we were aware of it from the very beginning, and I'm not sure if the Omnibus is going to correct this, because if it hires the threshold, there's always the value chains there, and as for the Omnibus and the reporting, it's necessary to reduce the required data points. There are so many of them are now qualitative and not quantitative. It should really, both the reporting and the 3D, it should be about the really significant stuff and not everything, because if you have too much, then the boards and companies will have a negative attitude, and it should be based on what is really crucial for this company, for this business line, and certainly hope that this will happen in the exercise, that there will definitely be a reduced number of data points, and also the double materiality assessment, that will be the starting point for everything. That what is important in our company, in our business, and having much shorter reports, so that they would be actually interesting for everybody, because of course we hope that clients, customers, consumers, that they would be involved and interested in this, and companies having good progress in sustainability issues, that they would have a competitive advantage, that their clients would want to choose them. So we would need to work on, so that this because this is the goal, that also customers, whether consumers or B2B customers, that they want to choose the ones who are, and then you need clearer, concise information, and not 200-page reporting. And as for the Omnibus, the taxonomy thing, I have to say that unfortunately the situation in the world is such that defense industry should be as positive there, and I have to trust that will happen. And also how it was built. I know a large listed company that is a very high-tech company and produces methodologies for many green transition companies, and sells that very high-tech. And how the taxonomy regulation is built is that they have a list, and if you're not on the list, you're not a green company. And for example, this company uses global top-level semiconductors, and the most valuable semiconductor producers do not give you certificates that the EU wants you to give. So that kind of companies are totally out of the taxonomy, although they are the most advanced. This company that I'm talking is one of the most advanced in this area, and having super high level possibilities for the customers to work on. So the taxonomy, one needs to look very seriously that is it really the right thing or not to have it in a manner that it is currently.
Well, thank you very much for this comment. I recognize also that taxonomy is a bit of a difficult animal in many ways, and it does not cover the entire economy, so creating a lot of frustrations, as you pointed out. Thank you very much, Leena and Dragos, for your contribution and sharing your feedback on the first CSRD. Maybe a last question for Leena, a tricky question, but since I had it for Dragos, I don't want to leave you without it. In your companies, how many ESRS were considered material?
Well, because
with Dragos, I think that was 4.
I mean, I'm not. I think I thought it was admirable that you have 4. I think the number in general is a little bit higher, and because 4 sounds excellent, but I'm afraid in many of the companies it might be 6 to 8 or some more or less something like that. But it's great to hear such experience. I don't have a concise statistics.
Sorry, that was a surprise question for the day.
Yes.
But indeed, I agree with you that it's interesting to listen to Dragos' point about for big, large listed company like Electrica that they go with only 4 material ESRS. That shows that this work of double materiality assessment has been done also thoroughly to make sure that what is going to be discussed is only about things that really matter to the company. And you still end up, I understand, Dragos, with 200 pages, which may be a little bit too much for Leena.
Yes, it is. Maybe even for
at
Dragos.
least, those are 200 pages dealing with important matters, I assume.
Yeah, I fully, if I may, I'm fully online with what Leena said about making it more attractive so that we can get more people to read it. First of all, within the company, I think it's very important that people, get to a sense of belonging to something that is important, and they get their information that maybe they were not aware of. So I remember the first time when we started this, having a big room with 50 top executives from all the group, and I put them the amount of CO2 they have on their shoulders individually. It was crashing, I have to say, because it was thousands of tons for each of them. So they felt like like having it really. So that's how we started it. It's very important how you start on that. And I think it's a challenge. That's why, and I would address one of the questions that I've seen from one of the participants. That's why I put public policy in the name of the committee. It's not just climate governance. It starts with that, but we have to be involved in public policy making. So even in the way this reporting will be, reviewed and make it accessible and readable and understandable to a larger audience in the communities that we are dealing with. I think we have to be part of that, and I think this is about public policy making. And I thought of making it climate governance and public policies because, having a 50-50 privately held state-owned, it's quite challenging. As an independent, I can
Yeah.
I can tell you lots of stories, but it's not now the time. So it's important, I think, to be part of that and to engage in the change process. I think it's not just reporting, it's not just conformity. It has to go beyond that. And I don't know if I made it clear, but that was the aim from my side.
And for many companies, I think one of the challenges will be to address what Leena was talking about as well, meaning making sure that this is a tool to improve the competitiveness of the company. Because at the end of the day, when we talk about Omnibus, those proposals are aimed at improving the competitiveness of the European companies. Improving the competitiveness is reducing cost, and that's the spirit of the proposals, of the Omnibus proposals, but it's also enhancing the value of the company, enhancing the positioning of the company on the market. And that's maybe a challenge that CSRD is not fully addressing today. As Leena was pointing out, that those publications can really be a driver of recognition for the companies that are doing efforts on matters that really matter, like such as climate or sometimes biodiversity. It depends obviously on the topic. Leena was right to mention that for some companies, work accidents is a key criteria. That is very important in construction. Typically, that's something you will see as an important criteria. So I definitely agree with that. That it's also about making sure that it's a driver of competitiveness and not just an administrative burden, which is, I'm afraid, the feeling of many as of today. What would be interesting to see is really once you have reviewed the 200 reports that are on your desk, Dragos, what are the best practices that you may see from those reports to actually make your own presentation of your company better and more to the point? Maybe reduce a few pages so that Leena can take the time to read them. I think those will be interesting points. There are a few questions. I think you addressed one of them at Electrica, sending the PowerPoint. I think that will be done. I had a reminder also to stress, and that's a very good point, to stress the fact that the Omnibus are only proposal directive at this stage. So the Stop the Clock has been approved, as far as I know, by the Council, but not yet by the European Parliament. And the content directive, which is the most complex and which is also the most subject to debate, will need to be approved by both the Council and the European Parliament. And the details of the simplification are still up in the air. I believe that EFRAG is going to be mandated to work on reducing the number of data points. Well, that's a tough work. I think my view is there will be also a lot of learning from the first time CSRD publication, you know, again, looking at what the others are doing and moving more towards something that is really driven by double materiality and reducing the number of pages. That's definitely something that will be helpful. I see also a question about speakers have suggestions for best practice. So Dragos, maybe first, and then Leena, if you have a view on what are the best practices in terms of working on the CSRD and making CSRD real.
If I may suggest that I can put some of these suggestions on my LinkedIn account, so I encourage everybody to get connected. I think it's a useful tool. Let's make use of that, and let's communicate much more than just this webinar. Maybe it's just an introductory. So I would be happy to connect with everybody that was participating in this, and we can, you know, share things along the process, because we're, I think, at the very beginning of the process. It's going to be to make it meaningful. For all the stakeholders, for the whole communities, we need to, you know, to be part of this and to be open-minded towards that. So I will definitely share what I think of is relevant, but I think that's the way to communicate that.
Leena, maybe any best practice you've observed?
No, I think I haven't seen one yet that would satisfy my wish for being clearer for the employees and customers and society. So I'm interested in seeing Dragos's proposals in LinkedIn. So let's all study that list. Thank you.
Let's hope it's going to be a big list of best practices that we can draw from. All right. Well, I think we are coming near to the end of this webinar. Beatrice, maybe you want to give the closing word?
Well, just to thank you, all of you. I think it was very practical insight. Thank you very much. As usual, we will try to make a report out of the discussion, and that will be available in the coming weeks. So wishing you, all of you, a very good day. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Bye.
Goodbye.